Accessibility is a right, not a privilege. Every individual, regardless of physical, cognitive, or sensory abilities, deserves access to spaces, services, information, and opportunities. Breaking Barriers for Inclusive Manitoba connects with real people to hear about their lives, challenges, and solutions to creating a more inclusive Manitoba for all.
Good morning. My name is Florence Opudole, and I'm excited this morning to be involved in bringing to you today the Breaking Barrier Project. The Breaking Barrier Project is for Inclusive Manitoba. It is aimed at raising awareness about the prevention and removal of accessibility barriers in line with the Accessibility for Manitobans Act. The human spirit is one of ability, perseverance, and courage that no disability can steal away. One of our favorite ways to ignite this passion and jumpstart a happier and healthier lifestyle is by hearing some amazing and motivating stories from outstanding individuals. Today, I am joined by one of the world's most talented, motivational individuals in our community, Dr. Zephania Matanga. Dr. Zephania Matanga, the Executive Director of the Canadian Multicultural Disability Centre. He holds a doctorate in the area of special education from the Department of Applied Psychology at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, University of Toronto. In addition, he is a certified teacher in Ontario and Manitoba. He came from Zimbabwe in 1992 with a wealth of experience and first-hand knowledge about the debilitating effects of disability on professionals in his homeland and throughout Africa. His postgraduate studies in Canada and abroad are extensive. As a special education research leader, he has developed educational strategies that are most effective for children, youth, and adults with disabilities, non-speaking students and those with seizure disorders, students with emotional behavior disorders, and those with visual disabilities, and other physical and perceptual disabilities. He also understands as to how such skills can be applied in both developing and developed nations. This is demonstrated by a series of projects he has implemented both in Canada and Zimbabwe. He has also just co-authored a university textbook titled Transformative Inclusive Education, published by Canadian scholars. As the Executive Director of the Canadian Multicultural Disability Centre, he has been very effective working with engineers and physicians in the development of assistive devices for persons with disabilities. Welcome to the project, Mr. Matanga.
Thank you very much, my sister, for inviting me to this great discussion. And I feel privileged to be part of this very important project of breaking barriers for people with disabilities, because that has been my passion throughout my life.
Thank you so much for honoring us by attending and being here today. And I'm sure our listeners will be very, very delighted to hear from you. First of all, before we go ahead, I would like you to tell us a little bit about your story, how you grew up and became who you are today.
I was born in a small village called Chilasauta in Zimbabwe, a country which is in Southern Africa, and which is near on the border with South Africa on the south side, Mozambique east, Botswana on the west, and Zambia on the north. So, being born in this village, just like many villages in Africa and in Zimbabwe, and particularly at that time, there were no facilities, health facilities for people or children. So being in that situation, children were amenable to be affected by a number of various diseases. That could be polio, measles, all those kind of stuff. So when I was 5 years old, I happened to be attacked by measles. And at that time, I had not been immunized, and it was so heavy, and then it destroyed all my eyes. So from 5 years, I was attacked by the measles in my eyes. But because, despite that, with the help of my parents, like also there were no, given that I had already developed this disabling condition, so it means in this village, it was no longer feasible for me to even access education or do much stuff in this village. So my parents decided to take me to a school in Gweru, about 200 kilometers, where I started going for boarding school from grade 1 until I went to the university and graduated, and then eventually came to do my postgraduate in Canada. So this is a brief history. Of course, it was not easy. It's just a big biography I've just said, but maybe we'll go into details in the struggles which ensued after being disabled.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matanga. Viewers at home, this is kind of, when you mention, I don't know, some of you at home might be thinking same thing that I'm thinking right now when you mention that measles can cause this. And at the moment we are right now, we are hearing in the news that measles have resurfaced again, and also some parents that are, against immunization. So I think without saying much, I don't want to take it away from you, but how important immunization of children are. But I want to stay on the topic. I wanted you to talk to us about the resiliency of your parents, because sometimes some of our young mothers and young parents now have kids that are facing one challenges or the other, and sometimes it looks like they are alone, and the society doesn't acknowledge the pain that they go through. So I want you to talk a little bit about your parents, how they were able to move you away from the place you were born to a whole new area and a new environment.
In my life, it's when I became disabled, it became a community issue. It was not just something for my mother and father. Actually, from my mother's side, an effort was made initially to try and see how I can be revived when I got sick, taken to the hospital, especially from my mother's side. And when we arrived at the hospital, the measles had already attacked the eyes completely, so there wasn't nothing that could be done. So from there, as a family, there was always a constant discussion of how they're going to help me, until my brother discovered, because there were very few schools. When I was born in Zimbabwe, it was called Rhodesia. Rhodesia was a British colony, and which became independent, but being ruled by minority white people, and they didn't care much about the black community. So there was more of a problem because of the facilities to cater for people who were disabled like me were very limited, and were only put together or established by private entities, individuals, such as Jaros Giri and so forth. And those were the people, and we were taught in separate, segregated schools, so that this school belongs on to these people like this. So, but in terms of the resilience of my parents, was that when I became blind, they did not discriminate anything against me. They treated me like one of them, both my family, and I participated in all traditional and what activities. I was never discriminated on a family level. So that is how the resilience, I developed the resilience, because of the love and from my family and the community at large, even in my community. So I didn't see any form of discrimination. The discrimination only started when going to school. That's when I began to see the system which was in existence begin to discriminate and begin to treat me differently. But I was never treated differently at my family level.
That's really wonderful. That's good to know. Mm-hmm. And also something that listeners at home can hear and learn from, that as a family living with a child or with someone with living with some disability, it's very, very important for us to treat that person as same and not, offer help all the time simply because we look at the challenges and said, it's like us, sometimes it's like other people. Sometimes you see a challenge, a step you cannot climb. Will somebody bring a ladder for you to, or a step for you to? No, they will just show you the way to, oh, you can use the other step. So I think listeners I think can relate to this as one thing we can take away from your story, that as a family, as a community, we need to be inclusive in our decision making, especially when we decide on even little things as give me a cup of water, get me a cup of water, get me this, get me do this, do that. That we also include the person in the family that is living with such disability or any disability. But thank you so much on that. This is very, very important. And I want, and I'm sure there are a lot of families that are going through that. I'm wondering, how can I help? There is always that chances in our second thought or in our mind to say, let me help. The ability to help. It's always, and we think that we are doing the right thing. I just want you to stress on that helping all the time. Is it good for people around you at that time? Do you find it helpful that they are helping you? Or do you find it helpful that they leave you on your own?
Well, it was a combination of both. Yeah. In my family, they were not helping me when I did not need help. Okay. Actually, some of them were seeking help from me. So it was, they will get the help when I need it. I'll also provide help when that. So the way they treated me, of course they were, because of my disability, I would need more help, right? But they did not see me as a burden that they need to help. No. Sometimes they just leave me making mistakes, just like all children, and also get in trouble if something goes wrong. So they didn't treat much me differently. So I would also go to playgrounds, to all this playing with other boys and so forth. At that time we're herding cattle and goats and so forth in the bush and that kind of stuff. What is still surprising me up today, in this village there were a lot of snakes, but I used to walk by myself, even sometimes passing through the jungle on my own. But I've never been bitten by a snake even a single day. Even up to today, I'm still surprised what happened. So that was this happened in that village. So the whole community, when I walk around, of course, people just think, where are you going and so forth. And then sometimes if I'm lost, they will escort me to where I'm going. And they feel very happy to have helped me. I did not experience any resistance or kind of resentment in my village. But later on, when I went into schools, institutions, that's when I experienced some kind of discrimination on my disability, but never in my family.
No, thank you, Dr. Matanga. We all thought that, listening to you, I thought that being in school should be better, or will be better, or will provide a better atmosphere for people living with challenges. But I'm surprised, that you kept mentioning when you went to school. So I want us to move over to when you came to Canada, and you were already an adult, graduated in Zimbabwe, or you did your studies there?
I did in Zimbabwe.
In
But
Zimbabwe.
yeah, but I just want to go to a very interesting story,
Yeah.
which happened when I was in grade 3 in school. When I was in doing my grade 1, grade 2, it was at a residential school only where blind students were only for blind students. But after grade 2, you were screened, and then to go to mainstream schools where you go and be in the same class with people who were sighted. So in my class, when I was in grade 3, I was the only blind student. Everybody was sighted. So it was just me. And then what was interesting, when the teacher thought he was doing me a favor, they was taking these children to do some work outside. It could be gardening or doing other extra activities. He would leave me in the classroom, locking me there, saying, oh, he's there by himself. Didn't even realize that I even need to go to the washroom. They would go and stay there for 1 or 2 hours. So one day, I had to pee myself in my pants. And then when the teacher comes, he's angry, then he had to give me corporal punishment. But he didn't realize that he was the one who had made a mistake, leaving me, and there was no access to the washroom. So you might be thinking you are helping somebody, and then at the end you are going to punish him. You don't realize you are the one who made the mistake to leave this person in the classroom by himself. I don't know what he wanted me to do. So that's one interesting incident which happened, when I was in grade 3.
Wow, that's interesting. You see, I also work with people with disabilities, and I know in the field, a lot of us staff, we try to do what we think we are helping, but at the end of, like, even things like tying the shoelaces, helping the person put on dress, we do not for one day said, oh, let's find out whether the person can, what do you want? How do you want it to be done? But things are getting better, and we are learning as we go. So I believe that moving on forward, every day we are learning from the past mistakes, and hopefully the future will be better than what it is right now. So thank you for sharing that. There you say, a saying that I had here, it said, I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destinations. I cannot change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination.
Yes.
In line of this saying, I wanted you to share with listeners what gave you the passion to go into education and to doing what you're doing right now.
What gave me the passion is it's my father. When I went to this boarding school, I was taken away from the love of my family, and to go to strangers, the people whom I did not know, and so forth. But so initially I hated my father for that. Say, why are you taking me from this? All my brothers and sisters were going to local schools. And when I go back home the holiday, there will be a lot of fun. And then I would say, I would count days when I'm coming back. So and think, but then one day my father told me, we do not have school which could have helped you here. We didn't have a choice. But what I want to tell you is, since you are blind like this, I can work hard to produce all these things for you and live for you, but your brothers and sisters will take everything away from you. But I'm going to give you something which you will never take, which nobody will ever take from you, which is education. Wow, and then he said, if you are planning for 1 year, plant rice. If you are planning for 10 years, plant a tree. But if you are planning for 100 years, educate yourself. That's why I'm educating for you. So I'm planning for you for 100 years.
Wow.
That's what my father said.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. Listeners at home, I'm hoping that we got that. And I think that's the biggest legacy we could say that we are seeing today. You being that legacy itself, and trying to pass it on. And again, I just wanted to remind viewers that Dr. Matanga is the Executive Director of the Canadian Multicultural Disability Centre here in Winnipeg. Am I right? Does it have any other?
Yes.
Here in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And you are doing such an excellent job. I wanted us to move on to, again, how you change the direction of the wind. Not only did you excel in academics, you also excel in work life, and you went on to found this organization on disability for the multicultural communities. How is that going for you, sir?
Oh, excellent. In 1996, in Toronto, when we first came to Canada, we arrived in Toronto in August 1992. That's where I did most of my graduate work. When I was in Toronto in 1996, I had met another disabled friend from Uganda, and then and I met another again, a number of them. But all what we've discovered that we're all isolated. We did not have any. We would go to some of these mainstream disability organizations. There was very little knowledge about how life is for us in terms of isolation. It was actually very detrimental. And one of these, a friend of mine, was found dead. Being alone, we don't know how this person died, and he was found dead after a month, when he was already rotting in an apartment in Toronto. So that came to our mind that we needed to come up with something that can help us as people with disabilities from ethno-cultural community. And we realized that immigration can be a nested process. A nested process is whereby when you come, sometimes you meet people from your country. And then your people from your country will be able to show you around and so forth, or a family if you have any family. And then you later on go to the Canadian milieu. But most of the disabled people would stay where they are. And what was happening is that sometimes, because of your disability, you'll be forced to stay in certain places which you cannot even access your community. So even this nested approach says it would not even help you. You are isolated from your community. You are isolated from many people. You are just on your own. So we realize that people with disabilities, when they come to Canada, you are never heard from. And sometimes that's the end. You are only heard when you are dead. And nobody knows who have come to see you, where you are, and what you are doing. And it's very difficult. So we discovered that because of that situation of the isolation, inaccessibility to resources, combination of racialization and disability made life difficult for people with disabilities. That's why we came up with this organization. Initially we called African Canadian Disability Community. Until 2002, we changed so that we embrace people with disability from all over the world who are experiencing challenges. So that's how we formed this organization called Canadian Multicultural Disability Centre.
Thank you so much for that. Listeners at home, we are listening to this episode on breaking barriers on people who are living with some challenges and some disabilities. In our community of today, like Dr. Matanga has said, it's so we feel that we are doing enough. We feel that we are making sure everybody is inclusive in what we are doing. But today we are hearing that people living with disabilities are also still facing isolation in the various areas of their life or in their living in general. So what can we do as societies to change this perception to be inclusive? A lot of times when we talk about inclusivity, we talk about DEI, we talk about cultural communities, we talk about things like education, but we never talk about the community aspect, how communities have somehow create boundaries and lines and demarcations and challenges itself, that it enable them to meet each other at the very point where they need the people. You talked about your family, your community being together with you, how you miss being with them when you go to boarding schools, and how you are happy when you come back. I guess that point is one point I wanted listeners at home to think about, that even a child or a family living with someone with disability, we are all part of the family, and we as community has to work hard in making sure that they are included in every decision making that we are doing or every aspect of our community. Thank you again, Dr. Matanga, for that. And we are doing this show on breaking barriers.
Yes, there was also a very important point which I wanted to raise. Canada is a very pleasant country to immigrate to, and I think it's one of the most progressive countries in the world. However, for people with a disability, it's very challenging to come to Canada. Under Immigration Act, Section 19, it indicates that if two doctors declare that your disability is going to cost Canada, there's a figure more than that money, you will not be allowed to come to Canada because of that. And some people have been forced even not to bring their children with the disabilities to Canada because of that. So that section there makes many people hide their disability when they come to Canada. That's one of the challenges, that the people will be forced, to hide their disability. You see, disability, there's a number of disability. It could be physical, it could be mental, it could be all forms. Because of that hiding, and they'll try to continue hiding, think that even if they go to their papers, if they are discovered, they can be deported. So under that Immigration Act, Section 19, it's very prohibitive for people with disabilities to come to Canada. So that's why I want to highlight. That makes sometimes people with disability to declare their disability so they can access services or help. So especially those who have invisible disabilities.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I was quite surprised when, and that was some time past, when a family brought it to my attention that their application to immigrate to Canada was rejected when they have gone through everything, and then when they went for the medical test, and one of the child was had some challenges that he's living with, their application was denied simply because of the child. And then I have met another family again that have to do what you said. The because of the disability, they removed the child's name, and then they were given, and now they are trying to. I don't know. It's quite sad that we will be talking about this, that this is what Canada represents outside. But I thought that, over the years, that the policies, people will be talking more about the policies. So I think the listeners, if one of the takeaways I will ask that people think about is, what if you are the one with a child living with disability and wanting to migrate to Canada, and you are rejected just because of that child? How will you feel? And I'm really happy that I'm glad that you raised that issue up, because it's one thing that we inside already are asking the Canadian government to please look into that and try and see if changes can be made to such a bad policy. Thank you so much. I want us, I want us to talk about how you feel about the representation of people with disability in the media and in the educational sector.
Now, that disability has been a challenge for many from centuries. People have been trying to understand disability from a number of perspectives. From the religious perspective, from the medical perspective, from the psychology perspective, and also from the special education. So in Canada, access to education for people with disability it's very recent, as far as I think the 19th century, when people who are visually handicapped could be allowed to go to schools and that kind of stuff. But in terms of trying to understand how disability operates, I would like to explain a little bit. When a person gets an anatomical deficiency in his or her body, it means the person has lost a leg, has lost the eye, has lost the hand. This is how the medical understands that because of this, of losing this, that's what we call an impairment. It's a biological impairment. But then it comes what is called disability. Because of this impairment, I'm not able to walk. So impairment is just a losing something. But that losing something makes you not have the ability to do something. Like it becomes disabled. So people usually confuse impairment and disability. So disability is the inability to engage in a certain activities. So, but the impairment, sometimes people just assume because you have this impairment, you can't do A, B, C, D. So because you have impairment, what it means, you have to look for alternative means of accomplishing that same task. And then the third aspect is called what we call handicap. Handicap is now, because you are blind, when the people see you now, they begin to have an idea, oh, he can see, he can do this. So they begin to come all these theories, which are false. So handicap is what the people or the society thinks about people with disabilities. That's what we call handicap. And what is disabled is what makes your impairment to perform certain activities. So these things are not related. So people should understand that having an impairment, you should just have to look for an alternative means of accomplishing the certain tasks which you could have carried using that biological product, such as leg or a hand or that kind of stuff, which is just part of the biological, anatomical, biological of the body. So people always confuse those things, and that's always leading them to stereotyping of the people. Just in the same way they look at people, they become black, and then they look at them. So it forms handicap and stereotypes. That's the challenge we are having in this world today.
Oh, thank you so much for educating us on that, because in my own layman understanding or layperson's understanding, I thought that they moved away from the word handicap to, firstly, it was from handicap to challenges, or to disability, and from disabilities to challenges. I think that's what we have right now. But I think listeners some might be more knowledgeable on that than me. But the word impairment and the differentiation of the word impairment and disability. It's what is exciting to me that you brought that out. So thank you so much for explaining that part to our listeners, because it's very, very important that we know the differences of the words that we are using. Thank you, Dr. Matanga.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want us to cap it all by you're living in Canada. How has Canada helped you to get to where you are?
Canada has been very helpful.
And did you find all the resources that you need? Is it accessible to you? Is there other resources that you would have preferred to have and you were not able to get?
The challenge in Canada for people with disability from ethnocultural community, you have to work more harder than anyone else. And there was not that much. There is lots of discrimination against people with disabilities in Canada based on not only on their disability, but also on ethnicity and racial. And you can see it all the time. And it's very difficult for people with the disability from ethnoculture to find jobs in Canada. For among the ordinary disability, unemployment is around 50%, but for people with disability from ethnoculture, almost around 90%. Because this is very challenging. I hope this is an area which needs more investigation and more research and more analysis. And like every time, disabled people are the last to be hired and the first to be fired.
Well, has there been any improvement in that area from the time you started the organization to now? Are you saying that there has not been and even if it's a slight change to perception of employers?
Well, the challenge now, we don't have, for us to be able to measure the success, we need data. So we do not have statistical data to see what's needed for us to be able to document what's happening. Because, like I said, people with disabilities, just when they come, they're in their corners, and they're just hiding. Some of them, they just stay with their families and never to be seen again. So if we are going to we need data to be able to say we are succeeding. But what we do not have now is lack of data to be able to make a judgment of whether it's improving or not.
What will it take to have that data done?
We have submitted a number of proposals to different agencies to see if we can influence Statistics Canada to be able to include the statistical data in terms of employment when the employers are hiring or for the people who have been hired. That's the only way we'll be able to generate the statistics.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to recap what you just said about the challenges faced by people in the ethnocultural communities that are living with disability. Viewer and listeners at home, I just wanted to point that out again, because as immigrants to this country, we automatically assume we are facing a number of challenges at various levels. But to add on top of the layer is living with a disability. And then, like Dr. Matanga has explained to us today, most of us that are living with these challenges, they stay home. We do not have data about them. And then for organizations that are working on their behalf, they also face even more challenges trying to knock on the doors of funding to get enough funding to support the individuals that are relying on them, or hoping or individuals that are expecting them to speak on their behalf. So it's such a huge task. Breaking Barriers wanted to look into all these areas and see how we have been doing as a community and as a province, how and where we need to do more work. And I think today, talking to Dr. Matanga has opened our eyes to the fact that while we are progressing as a nation, as a community, we need to do more work on individuals from the ethnocultural communities that are living with disability. Am I right, Doctor?
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you so much for highlighting that. And I think before we come to a close, I just wanted to, I guess this is, I mean, based on the work that you do you think you are getting enough partnership with other organizations in the same field?
Yes. So far, there's been a great improvement in working with particularly organizations from the ethno-cultural communities. But the Main Street, we still have challenges in working together with the Main Street disability organizations. Because some of them, when we do this work, they see us as competitors, and they've always think, oh, we are doing this work already, why should you guys be doing it? So actually we are getting more resistance from the Main Street disability organizations, but we are getting better coordination, collaboration from the ethnocultural communities.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm so disappointed to hear that, but I'm hoping, and that's why this project came about, breaking barriers, that all barriers that are known and that are being faced by people living with disability, that all these barriers will be addressed. And moving forward, we'll see how we can all work together as one community to build that kind of supportive network that your father, that your community built for you, and to have to see you today to where you are today goes back to show that when you have a strong community behind you, a strong society that knows what they are doing, that if all barriers are broken, we stand the chance of producing better individuals, more effective individuals, people that makes the community grow. So thank you so much. And on a personal level, can you tell us about some of the challenges that you might be facing right now as you are?
Well, on a personal level, I don't have any challenges. I'm enjoying. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather, and my grandchildren are fond of me. They like me a lot, and they are always troublesome. And I'm always and I'm also giving back to my community back home. I've just established, in honor of my disability, a clinic there, so that any children who suffering with measles and polio will never experience. On a personal level, I have no challenges at this time. I'm very happy with what I'm doing, but I'm only sad on a level where I see other people's abilities not succeeding, not because of their own, but being left behind.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matanga.
Yes.
There is a very wonderful saying that I wanted to talk about, and it says, it's by Theodore Roosevelt. He said, believe you can, and you are halfway there. But in your own case, you are there.
Yeah.
So it's not about being halfway. And I'm so happy that we are able to bring you to this show, to this talk show, to talk about breaking barriers and how we can make our community an inclusive community, because I think that's where where we really need to work on some policies that need to be changed.
Yes.
And even as I know you mentioned a little bit about it, about other organizations, bigger organizations, and I hear that too from smaller organizations talking about being crushed by the bigger organization, and it's like it's scrambling.
Yes.
Funds are limited, we know that, but it will be very, very important that funds are directed to organizations that are targeted, to specific job that they are doing. And one of them is your organization, which is the Canadian Multicultural Disability Centre.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you
Truly
very much.
appreciate your presence and for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Breaking Barriers for Inclusive Manitoba is focused on raising awareness and taking action to prevent and remove accessibility barriers. This initiative is proudly in partnership with Accessibility Manitoba, working together for a more inclusive future.